everybody, this is Eve West. Thank you for tuning into my YouTube channel. This channel is dedicated to promoting a book I wrote. It's called Follow. It's an ebook. You can find it on Amazon.com under the Kindles tab. And my book deals with a holistic view of spirituality, looking at it not just from a psychological, metaphysical standpoint, the etheric aspect of a human being, such as creativity and love and all the intuition, those particularly conceptual etheric aspects of us, but also from the reptilian brain, which is the physical part. And so we can see, taste, touch, smell, and hear. And so I explore various topics that really we are shunned away from, exploring in spirituality, such as, I guess you would say, sex and, money and, race and so forth. And so those are various aspects of ourselves that we really are taught and conditioned, if you will, to stay away from. And so I really strive to bridge the gap between heaven and hell, or I guess you would call the upper chakra system and the lower chakra system. And so we can embrace the totality really of who we are, as opposed to just being I guess as you would say, spiritually homosexual, if you will, in a way. And that's not to say there's anything wrong with homosexuality, but when it comes to the metaphysical, it's not good to be half of yourself. It's good to actually embrace, the totality of who you are, so you can reach ascension. So you can ascend and you don't have to actually reincarnate back into the prison system of the demiurge or demiurge, if you will. And so in my last video, I talked about a gang stalking experience that I had with a man that I met on the pier. I really had the best of intentions of having a good day of taping. And, I'm always faced with gang stalking. And I've explained in other videos what gang stalking is, but when you're reaching a higher taxonomy of knowledge and you're really finding out a whole, really debunking the matrix and decoding the matrix in terms of all the constructs that uphold it, such as religion and media entertainment and so forth, you start to vibrate differently. You don't vibe very well with the people who are around you that are programmed, in the system. And so when that happens, you start to become a target, and you are seen as a divergent, if you will. And going back to the movie Divergent, how the people were actually sought after because of who they were or what have you. They didn't really fit in, and so you start to not fit in with your new esoteric knowledge. And so I was very upset, very ticked off that this person had came and interrupted my taping. And, one way to retaliate, I oftentimes retaliate against my gang stalking, is offer some knowledge, because the real reason why you're attacked within your environment is because you have explored esoteric knowledge, and you do have a more of a connection, if you will, to the spiritual realm in physicality. And so you're ascending, and so I tried to give this person some knowledge, if you will. He said that his birthday was in a week or something like that. So I was like, oh, okay. I was like, do you know why we blew out our candles in our birthday cake? And I talked about how your candle represents your knowledge. And so every time you're reborn and you're put back into the reincarnation system, your mind is wiped. And you blow out your knowledge, if you will. You sell your soul for some cake, basically, for some money. And, that's you're celebrating your enslavement, if you will. And so a lot of these things, he really tried to skate around. He did not want to talk about them. He really, really tried to control the conversation and divert the topics I was talking about to other things. But I was very angry. And so when he invited me out later, I decided to go out with him. And I didn't decide to go out with him because I liked him. He wasn't, well, I'm more androgynous now anyway, so I don't really have a type. Well, there's only one man for me. but as far as like how I used to see sexuality and romance as a very mundane, superficial reptilian brain individual, I see it very differently now. So I was not interested in this person. However, I was interested in picking his brain and really getting him to listen to some of the esoteric knowledge that I had to share, which he was very afraid, and he would not allow me to do that And I really just kind of gave up on it because he was just so chicken, I should say, and really allowing me to get out what I wanted to say. But I'm used to that. But the reason why you're targeted is not because, there's anything wrong with you, but there's something wrong with the people targeting you, if you will. This whole world, seeming world, if you will, is Christian. It's a variant of Christ. The suffix IAN means a variant or part of. And a Christ is holy. A Christ is a Jew. A Christ is a God. A Christ is not just spiritual or, metaphysical, but also physical. And so most of the people, or actually everyone except the Christ within the matrix environment is considered reptilian. It's a fractorial of a reptilian mind. And so that's something that makes the Christ, if you will, stick out. So that's the whole intention, is to destroy the Christ, and so you can bring in the Antichrist, which is where the being becomes dominated by the unconscious mind instead of having the consciousness, having people to live consciously in their Christ consciousness and to be able to manifest at will. And so this person, when he invited me out, I didn't really want to go out with him, so I was like, let's meet at the library, which I guess is kind of lame superficially. And, he was like, I don't want to meet at the library. So I said, okay. And so I told him that there was a restaurant that was down the street that, from where I lived, that, might be a decent location or what have you. But one of the main reasons I wanted to meet with him is to do with race, because he's a white male. He is a white male, and the things that he was saying to me suggested that he was very racist because he kept talking about black women and how he had a particular taste for black women. And he, explained to me how black people, all they really care about is sex and so forth. And, superficially, I would be very offended by these comments, but I decided that he would be a really good test subject for my research, if you will, because a lot of the programming in the Matrix is designed to desecrate the womb of the black woman and to portray her as a whore of Babylon. And so he really was a very good, I guess you would say, specimen, so to speak, to represent the programming and how the programming doesn't just affect, I should say, the demographic that it portrays, such as the black woman in this case, but also other demographics who view the black woman. And so, this was even worse, I guess you would say, because not only did this person waste my time and, was bothering me during my taping, but also was insulting me as an ego, as a black woman. So I said, okay, this will be very interesting. I couldn't wait to meet him later on. But, when I met him later on, if you will, I really did get a chance to sift past the programming, and, underneath everything, I thought that he wasn't a bad person, but he was a victim of programming. And there was a lot of esoteric, I would say, meaning to, our interaction, if you will. And so, I talk about how the Antichrist is a white male. The Antichrist is a white male, and the Christ is a black woman. And so, when you look at that, and you look at race in the Matrix, if you will, we're all taught superficially that race doesn't matter. As an ego, I feel like that too. Race doesn't matter superficially. We all bleed red, and we all have the same, we all do the same things, have the same careers. We all go to the same movies and drive the same cars, and, we observe the same holidays and things like that. We hang out together. There's really no differences between people. It's just skin color. And so superficially, I can see as an ego how people accept that, but the esoteric knowledge involving race is much different, and race does matter when it comes to spirituality. Just think to yourself, why is it that, if we go to the DMV, or if we go to, we go to the hospital, or, if we go to apply for a job or something like that, we have to disclose our race. If race didn't matter, why would we have to disclose our race in these particular settings? Especially since we have social security numbers, right? Really it shouldn't make a difference that, you know my race and you know my gender and so forth. Race is, if those things don't matter and we're evolving as a human race, then that should actually be taken off of the, off of the form. And so because it's on the form and it's such an important part with our, and in conducting business within the matrix environment especially, race is important. And so I explore that here. And I look at the relationship between what is the embodiment of the Christ, which is the black woman, and the embodiment of the Antichrist, which is a King James of Scotland, who is a white male. And so really we look at, I guess that you would say eugenics here. Eugenics, because depending upon your level of melanin that you have, it determines the function of your third eye, because your third eye is connected to your melanin. And so depending upon if you're a man or a woman, that determines how much of the feminine or masculine energy that you have. And not only that, it determines, your melanin also is connected or related to that in a way. So what am I trying to say? When it comes to, I would say, a white male is very much absent of melanin. Everyone has melanin, regardless if you're black or white, but white males have less melanin than other demographics, and not so that actually focuses on or correlates to the pineal gland. Okay, so when you're deficient of melanin, the pineal gland is calcified, as they call it, calcified. It's not functioning properly. And then because not only does he get deficient of melanin, sufficient melanin for the pineal gland to really work in balance, it becomes not Saturn but Satan, because it's in a devolved state. He is absent of the feminine principle because he is a man, he is male, so he's super duper deficient. He's not just, he is what they would call Eve-ill, if you will, evil or evil. And so, I don't want people to think of evil as being like somebody that's bad. I don't really want you to think about these words in a superficial standpoint from the reptilian brain. We say someone's evil, they're bad. I'm not saying that white men are bad. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that white men are evil. They are absent of Eve. They are absent of the feminine principle. Out of all demographics within the matrix system, the white male is genetically altered, if you will, to be Eve-ill or absent of Eve. That's why when you have certain civilizations like the Native Americans, they talked about the white man. When the white man came, there was, a bunch of diseases and stuff like that, and they enslaved the Indians and killed a lot of them and so forth. And it really has to do with disintegration, because when you don't have as much melanin and you don't have that interconnectedness that with all that is, if you will, everyone around you, you become a reaper of the earth. The less melanin you have, the more reaping capabilities you have. You reap the earth. And so you do not have an empathetic connection to other people. It's like, that's why many serial killers are often Caucasian, because when it comes to genetic tampering, you have a predisposition because of your pineal gland, which would give you insight and interconnectedness and integration. You do not have those abilities anymore. That's been deactivated, if you will. And so, that is why the Antichrist is a white male, a reaper of the earth. When we get imperialism and westernization and conquering territories and stuff like that, it's all about taking from the earth and taking from other people as opposed to giving back to the earth. And so, this is what it means when I talk about the white male and how King James of Scotland, who's the elite that they plan on bringing in to take over the Demirage or the Matrix, how he is the Antichrist. He is the Antichrist. He's against Christ. And so Christ is the black female. Christ is the black female. And so I really don't want to, I guess you would say, in a way, this is going to sound like I'm glorifying the black female, right? Because I'm a black female. So it's like, of course, she's biased in terms of this video. I guess in a way you can say from an egoic standpoint, I am kind of biased, because, the black female represents the Christ. However, the black female, without her androgynous state, without being placed into her androgynous state, is also handicapped like the black male. So when the black female reaches her Christ aspect, then she is all that is. But when she has not found union with her masculine counterpart of herself, she is also handicapped like the white male, because the white male is a grim reaper of the earth, but the black female is also an exacerbated, I guess as you would say, sower of the earth. And so the black female is a major giver, but the white male is a major taker. And so what really is, they need a little bit of each other in order to become holy, if you will, and reach Christ consciousness. And so the thing is, though, is that a white male is the Antichrist and actually wants to stomp out the light of the Christ, if you will, when the black female actually starts to find union with the masculine aspect of herself. Because when you're born female, you automatically are deficient of the masculine. And also the black woman is very feminine inflated too, because not only is she female, but she also has the activation of the third eye, which is a feminine energy. So she's feminine because of her disposition of her sex, and she's also feminine because of the intuition that she has through the pineal gland. And so the black female and the white male, in a very subdued state, if you will, without DNA activation, very much clash. And so that's how you get Christ and you get Antichrist. And so this is perpetuated in pop culture too. Like when one year we saw Nicki Minaj, who portrays perfectly the beta sex slave, right? Because of all her split personalities that she portrays in her music. But she was seen married to the Pope. And so she was seen married to the Pope. You photographed married to the Pope at the Grammys one year, dressed in scarlet. And so there's a smear campaign to destroy Christ. There's a smear campaign to destroy the black woman, if you will. And so that's why in pop culture, especially we see black women portrayed in very nasty, filthy, disgusting ways, if you will, because a black woman is very polarized, very polarized. Either she's like a gutter butt, uneducated, materialistic whore, or she is the other part where she's very much sophisticated, and but she can't find companionship, and she's very intelligent. And so the black woman is very polarized, either white or black, as it pertains to the checkerboard floor of Freemasonry, if you will. But there's a smear campaign against Christ, and to see the black woman in a very poor light. And this doesn't just affect black women and our feelings toward ourselves, but also other demographics such as the white male, if you will. And really, to be honest with you, there's a jealousy, I believe, from an unconscious standpoint, there's a jealousy between the white male and the black female, because the white male wants the feminine capacity that the black female has, and the black female wants the reaping capabilities that the white male has, if you will. So they both they clash, but they clash because there's a type of I guess what you would say, jealousy, if you will, because both are starved of the energy that the other one holds, if you will. But once the black female finds her Christ aspect of herself, then, she will become one with the white male and with everyone and with all that is. And so I really want to talk about, how black women are portrayed, if you will, in the media. How we are portrayed, and how, just in pop culture. In pop culture, like with one I like to use is Cardi B. There's this song she has out, it's called Money. I really like the song, actually. I think it's a fun song. Very satanic, however. It's all about money. And, that's why it gives validity to the notion that the God of this world is Satan, because Satan deals with money and the material. And so that's what most of our music and, just our culture itself, our culture itself really is geared around money, around the material. And, but in her song, she talks a lot about how black women don't really have their stuff together. She says, I bet y'all will pop in your pops. I bet y'all will pop on whoever. And then she says, who pops the most shit is people who shit not together. And so she's telling you right there as a black woman, and I know, she's a black Latino, so she's pretty much black. So she's saying, her shit is not together. She's talking really poorly in a derogatory way about herself in her song. And people don't really get this when they're listening to the songs because they just like the beat, and they may, hear a word here and there. And so it bypasses their frontal cortex and goes into their temporal lobe. But what she's really saying is that she will pop on whoever, but the people who pop the most, which is her, is people whose shit is not together. She's saying that her shit is not together. So this is really subliminally programming you to consider this demographic of women to be, to not have their stuff together. And then she promotes, prostitution and associating black women with prostitution. She says, shake a little ass, get a little bag and take it to the store. Shake a little ass, get a little cash, shake it a little faster, get a little more, something like that. So she's really advocating that, you have sex with someone, you get some money, get a bag, and then you go to the store and you spend your money, if you will. You shake your ass to get money. And so that's always programming, especially kids before the age of 7 who are listening to this music in a theta brainwave frequency. It's conditioning you to believe that you are a whore, that you have sex for money. And so we see the black woman in shows like, Housewives of Atlanta and, Love and Hip Hop and, all these various shows, if you will, that just portray black people in a very poor satanic light. When I say satanic, meaning that correlating to Saturn, which is money. Black people are all about their clothes and about their houses and, about their cars and, jewelry and stuff like that. It's not about, I would say, there's no balance, if you will. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with cars and houses and jewelry. There's nothing wrong with those things. But when that is all that you show and you don't really show the positive, I would say, the other side of what a black person is, if you will, taking care, of their communities and serving their communities and being good family stewards of their family and so forth, and just partaking in being a good citizen within the community, and you don't have the balance of that from other people, it makes it look like black people are bad, black people are horrible. And so in particular the black female is focused on the most as being just a whore. And the reason why the black woman is considered the whore of Babylon is because the black woman actually is the Christ. The black woman is the Christ. And so we want to, in this, realm, they want to get rid of the black woman so the Antichrist can reign, if you will, as opposed to the Christ, which is the black female. And we see this even in like songs like Ape Shit by Beyonce and her husband. They're called the Carters. But in Ape Shit, that's already disrespectful because they're comparing black people, black women to apes. And you see a spectrum of black women in the video. And when Beyonce says, give me that vitamin D, she's talking about the sun. She's talking about the black woman actually being the son of God. Excuse me. And she's talking about how, the black woman finding union with her masculine counterpart, if you will, and reaching Christ consciousness. And so, when she says, give me my check, she's talking about how the black woman, the Christ, sells herself out as a Judas figure, to get some relief, because in the song you hear her say, hate is in danger, a whole lot of ganging. She's talking about gang stalking. When she says a whole lot of ganging, she's referring to gang stalking. And that's what happens when you're reaching Christ consciousness. Going back to many of my other videos, you experience a lot of gang stalking because you are not vibrating on the same frequency that the environment that you're in. You're vibrating higher. And when you're vibrating higher, you have a whole lot of knowledge, and you become a Luciferian, or a Lucy, or Lucifer, which is a bear of light, a bear of knowledge, if you will. Then other people will start to demonize you because they are programmed to stomp out your light as what you would call Antichrist. So the people represent in conception, right? Because, psychological mind torture is designed to make you leave your body. It's to make you leave your body. And so think of the Christ as an egg, and then the people within, that the Christ encounters to be the sperm, if you think about this in terms of a conception. And so the thing is that in order to cause rebirth, all you need is one sperm to actually fertilize that egg. And so the Christ is constantly gang stalked, and psychological programming is constantly used on the Christ to get them to blow up, if you will, because gang stalking exacerbates your emotional body and devolves the pineal gland, which is ruled by Saturn, and devolves it into Satan. And so you just get angry. You're provoked to anger until you blow up. And you're sold to the government like Jesus was sold by Judas. Gang stalking is intended to institutionalize you in some type of way. Eventually you get tired, and, something happens to where they find an excuse to institutionalize you in a jail, or to institutionalize you in some type of mental facility. That's the whole point, if you will, is to create such a restriction within the environment that, because the energy that's within you, because we're energetic beings, covered or housed within flesh, which is a prison. And so, you do not want to be limited, if you will. There's your natural inclination to be limitless. And so the more restriction that you're experiencing as you reach a certain level of knowledge, you decide to break out of it because you've had enough of it. I can't tell you how many times I have issues just going to do normal things, going to the grocery store, going to the library, going to, I don't know, wherever, within my dwelling itself. A lot of things I'm going to show you are, to me, very disturbing that I've actually had to endure within my dwelling itself. Just with my family and so forth. And so, you're experiencing a lot of affliction, and it's intended to, and laws are put in place, if you will, to make things difficult for you, to make it difficult for you to function. And that's another thing about gang stalking. Things that you used to do normally, you can't do normally anymore. And there's always a law, there's always a reason, if you will, some type of new rule or something like that they put in place to tick you off. And they're like, oh, this is just the law, this is just how we do things nowadays, if you will. But that's BS, because the way that things were done, there was nothing wrong with it. This new law just makes it to where you cannot function properly. And I can share some of those instances and things like that. Like one of them was, just calling to check on my bank account or whatever from the phone. It was like, oh, you know what, in order for us to access your account, although you put in your social security number, we need you to actually, get an activation code in your email. Well, what if I didn't have an email? A lot of people experience a restriction in the matrix. Oftentimes we have to do away with so-called luxuries, right? And so what if I don't have access to my email at that point, at that time? Am I not going to be able to have access to my account? So you have to jump through all of these particular hoops, if you will. I'm going to call in to check my account, and I'm going to give my social and put my PIN number and all that stuff in there, but there's one more hoop, and then once that hoop is done, it's like, oh, there's another hoop. And so things just become very difficult for you. You can't really function naturally or normally, and that's done intentionally to provoke you to anger and to exacerbate what we call your pineal gland, your emotional body, because you just really get ticked off and you're like, okay, I've had it, if you will. And so that's the intention. So, I wanted to focus on, how black women in particular are just portrayed in the media, especially, and going back to apeshit with the Carters and, Beyonce when she says fast like a Lambo, skeet, skeet, skeet. She's talking about the black woman. She's talking about the Christ. This is very much anti-Christ rhetoric, when she's like, skeet, 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 that's ejaculation. When she says fast like a Lambo superficially from your superficial reptilian brain, you think she's just talking about a fast sports car, a Lamborghini. But really, skeet, skeet, skeet indicates, and the fact that she says fast, because back in the day, older people would say, older black people would say, she's fast, meaning that she's promiscuous. And so it's associating the black woman, that's why the black women are dancing in the video, associating the black woman with being a whore of Babylon. And I really want to get into the metaphysics of the whore of Babylon as well, because the whore of Babylon is a prisoner on the astral realm. Is a prostitute on the astral realm. I talk a little bit about this in my ebook Follow and how that relates to me, if you will. I'm not going to go into too much into the whore of Babylon here, how that relates to me, per se, in my astral self. But, the whore of Babylon is really sheds light on how when you are placed under a restriction within your environment, and how that affects your will. Your will is taken away from you here. This is a prison system. You can't do what you want to do here, say what you want to say, be what you want to be. So this is a restriction. And so whenever your will is restricted, it affects what you would call your solar plexus, or I call it your earthly sacral. In New Age literature, they call it the Kundalini, but that has racial implications because many times black people were considered to be coons. And so I believe it has racial implications, but the Kundalini. And so that becomes imbalanced. And so the solar plexus, the Kundalini, whatever you want to call it, the earthly sacral, that is housed around your genitals. It is housed around your genitals. And so whenever you have an imbalance around your genitals, your solar plexus, where your sex organs and stuff are, that becomes disgusting and debased. And so as an ego, you're taught to be more pious, if you will, as it pertains to your sexuality. But because of the restrictions that you have in physicality under the law and under the rules and under societal norms, when you go to sleep at night and you shed your concepts of the matrix, you become a whore on the astral realm because you have to have sex to actually gain a connection to your body, if you will, because you don't have a connection to your body in the physical, as the physical ego, because it's so super duper psychological. And so that's when you go to the astral realm and you are a whore. You're really trying to do something to feel human, if you will. And the only way to feel human and to feel in the body is to copulate. And so that's why the whore of Babylon is a prisoner of the Freemason elites that actually created this false matrix society. That's why when you see the Freemasons, they hold up these horns, these devil horns. Oftentimes they'll hold up horns, like you'll see Prince Harry, if you will, that recently married Meghan Markle. When he had a press conference with her, he was holding up devil horns. And so this represents sex, actually. This represents a horny devil. That's why the devil is associated with horns, because you're in such a restrictive environment, if you will, as an ego here, which affects your genitals or your solar plexus or the sun of God, right? Because we're the gods. And so this is your sun. That's why you're clipped and you're cut from your Mother Earth, when you're born into this seeming world. You're cut at your solar plexus, and so your ability to manifest is taken away from you. So because of that, and because you're restricted with rules and laws and you cannot manifest, then you have to do that on the astral realm. And so in the astral realm, you are owned by an elite on the astral realm. And so you copulate with them for money, if you will, that you make, actually. Because everything that's been put into your unconscious, you have access to on the astral realm. When you go to sleep at night, you shed your concepts of the matrix and you get to work out your restrictions. And so the people who run this hellhole, these Freemason elites who run this hellhole for our consciousness, they are masters, or what they call themselves ascendant masters, but it really is just, ascendant just means dead. They're dead slave masters. And so they worship the devil. In other words, they worship, I guess you would say, ignorance, because the devil is the veil of the ego. And so the veil of the ego, or the veil, right? Okay, that's how they get these little words and so forth. They worship ignorance. The veil, or the veil of the conscious ego, which is the unconscious, is a devil. And so they worship the ignorance of mankind. And so that's why you will see these Freemason affiliates and, people holding up devil horns because they worship us being stupid and they worship us being dumb. And so, this goes back to Whore of Babylon and how the Christ that's born into the matrix system is a black woman. And so out of all the demographics, the black woman is actually desecrated the most, if you will, to look like just filthy, disgusting, degenerate, materialistic whores. Very satanic, all about sex and all about money. And so, the Christ is very much targeted. That's why, again, Beyonce says a whole lot of ganging in her video for Ape Shit. And people like, what is it, like Cardi B and her song, and how she's always talking about, glorifying prostitution and how, black women don't have their stuff together. Pretty much, this is all infused within our consciousness. Also, too, just kind of going back to the picture that Nicki Minaj had took a photo with being married to the Pope dressed in scarlet, right? As the Whore of Babylon, because scarlet means that you're a whore. Going back to the Scarlet Letter and how the woman who was the adulterer had to wear an A on her clothing. There's a picture of Cardi B wearing an A with a circle on her garment in one of her videos, and she looks really fool and sadistic and crazy. And so that's even another indication that it's considering the black woman to be an adulterer, considering the black woman to be a whore, really desecrating and doing a smear campaign against the black woman in particular, and making her look like just, unwanted, if you will. And another thing too is that, black women are really cultivated to be with white men on the astral realm, because it's kind of like a handicap. A black woman is really severely deprived of the masculine without her masculine counterpart, and the white male is very severely deprived of the feminine. And so they actually, really magnetically attract to one another on the astral realm. But in the physical environment, it's a desire to be with one another is cultivated. And so that's why you don't really see a lot of relationships with black females and white males. And so I was purposely groomed, if you will, to be with a white male on the astral realm. Like I said, our life is bound by the Akashic record, and the Akashic record is all the thoughts, actions, and emotions that you will have throughout your incarnation. And so when I was a little girl, the black men that I, saw in my family before the age of 7, where my idea of the black male was solidifying in a theta brainwave frequency, black males were very much deviant. My dad was a raging alcoholic, and my uncles, they often beat and cheat on their wives and stole from their wives. And, when I saw black men on television, they didn't pay child support and they were always in jail. And when I actually met a black man that I decided to marry, he exemplified a lot of the different not attributes, but a lot of the different characteristics of black men that I came to know as a child. And so I got a divorce. And so that automatically paints a horrible picture of black men. And so within the unconscious, you long to be with a white male, especially given television programming and so forth. So when you go to the astral realm at night, you are with white men. And so on the astral realm, I would be considered a prostitute for white men. And that's purposely cultivated because of the programming that I get as an ego, if you will. And so, I just want people to really, understand that eugenics is very important, and that, when you look at race or what have you, that is not what they superficially tell us. We all believe red and so forth. Don't let them tell you that it's a lie. The white male has a predisposition to be so absent of Eve, or ill of Eve, or Eve ill, if you will, that it makes him an exacerbated reaper of the earth. And so with westernization and imperialism, we see there's a raping of the earth as opposed to sowing the earth. And this is kind of like I guess talked about in certain doctrines, controversial doctrines like Mein Kampf, where Hitler, and I know people are like, oh, you're quoting Hitler and stuff like that. I'm not quoting Hitler per se, but because Hitler believed in a master race, right? And so, I'm not really in a place of judgment per se, but, Hitler did not, covet, or I wouldn't say covet, but he did not prefer the master race because they were superior. He preferred the master race because they're just governed by their reptilian brain. They're dumb blondes, really. When you're super duper blonde and super duper blue-eyed, and even people, white folks who are born, blonde hair and blue-eyed, a lot of times they're, the melanin kicks in and they're not naturally blonde. So that is not a natural way to be when you're super blonde and super blue-eyed, but whatever. The black side of you will kick in. But when you are super duper blonde and super duper blue-eyed, you don't have a functioning pineal gland. You are a dumb blonde. You do not have the capacity to see beyond the tricks and the illusions of the matrix. You're governed totally by what you can see, taste, touch, smell, and hear. That's it. And so that's why he coveted that particular type of Aryan race. So let's get that out there. So I'm not glorifying Hitler. The one thing that he said in Mein Kampf made sense. He said that there are 3 categories of race. One is culture creating, culture bearing, and then culture destroying. And so you would get, the more hue you have, the darker your hue, you're in that culture creating. So this is where we get like, Egypt. The blacks in Egypt really created a lot of the technologies that are perfected that we have today. And then you have your culture bearing, which is more like your Asian races or what have you. And then you have your culture destroying. And this is where you get to your Caucasian race. And so you see that the hue, or the melanin, right, connected to your pineal gland, gets filtered out. And so you become eventually a master race, a grim reaper of the earth, as opposed to a sower, someone that sows and gives life. So you give life, right, by culture, with culture creating, but then you take life by culture destroying. And when you're in between, you're in between that particular state, if you will. And so, it talks, and really this is even seen in other pop culture movies like Assassin's Creed. In Assassin's Creed, you look at the assassins, you have a black man, and then there was an Asian woman, and then there was a man that had like more of an olive hue, I don't know, like kind of Middle Eastern, what have you. But then the assassin that took the knowledge from the universe, right, the apple of Eve, because the elite, they're looking for the apple of Eve, and apple means knowledge, really. So the black woman, so the black, and because Eve represents the black woman, so the one assassin out of all of the eugenics, the black male, the the Asian woman, the man that's Middle Eastern or what have you with the olive hue, it is the white male that actually, and his last name is Lynch. They give you these clues. This is not a coincidence. Cal Lynch is the assassin who is genetically modified to take the apple of Eve because he has a predisposition to be super duper masculine and to be the Antichrist. And so, that's just it. The elite are looking to take knowledge and actually infuse a type of transhumanism, and that's when you get to the conspiracy theories of the New World Order or whatever, to make a human being just a robot. That's all they want to do, to make you a robot, and that's it. Basically, you have to go outside of yourself for everything. You can't go within yourself to manifest what you need, because true knowledge is that when you have knowledge, you can manifest anything that you would possibly need and want, and you don't have to look outside of yourself to a god, if you will. And so the gods of this world are psychos, they're lunatics. They are super duper unmelanated people who are psychos because they're really victims of their psychological degenerate minds. It's kind of like Erudite in the movie Divergent. Erudite was the faction that controlled pretty much all the other factions because they were smarter. They were super psychos or psychologicals. And so they didn't have balance. And so that's why they were culture destroying. That's why Kate Winslet was a super duper blonde haired and blue eyed, the head of Erudite. She represents the psycho. She represents the Aryan. She represents the one absent of melanin and who destroys culture as opposed to, or the heart, if you will, because heart is connected to your melanin. So Erudite was about destroying, what is it, abnegation? Is that what it is? Abnegation, which is considered to be the people who are the heart of the society, of that particular, faction, the faction that was the heart. They did things for the people, they fed the factionless and so forth, and they were just there being very selfless people. And the Christ, I would say the Christ is earthly and spiritual, but the black woman without her masculine counterpart represents in a way abnegation. She is the sower of life. She's the one who gives life. She is the one who is loving. She's the one who is loving and caring and nurturing, if you will, and selfless. And so, abnegation is the total opposite on that spectrum because they're absent of melanin. And so they actually seek to destroy the heart. And so by destroying the heart and destroying the pineal gland, they can actually have you function as some type of a robot, if you will, and control you by just what you can see, taste, touch, smell, and hear. If you will. And so a lot of these things that, the elite plan to do, they really infuse within their, pop culture and so forth, if you will. Somebody said movies nowadays are the hieroglyphs of, the modern day hieroglyphs, if you will. You can really see it with in an insightful way past the superficial. You think that you're watching a really, just happy-go-lucky movie, but when you look into it, you see the esoteric knowledge, if you will, that's in it. And when someone like me points this out to you, if you don't have a functioning third eye, if you will, you can really see the connection to it. There's really no way but to see it. And if you deny it, then you're consciously denying it because you know that it's the truth. If you will, race would not be an issue. Race is an issue because we have to disclose it. If we did not have to disclose it, you could turn this video off and say, that lady that's speaking on there, she's cuckoo, she's crazy, right? That's what the elite always want to do. And kind of just shrug you off as being like, oh, that person, they don't know what they're talking about, or whatever the case is, or they're racist, or they're this, or they're that. I am far from being a racist, if you will. But the thing is that, within our society, we are forced to disclose this about ourselves. And because we are forced to disclose this about ourselves, we know that it is important to this matrix environment. And so that's why people like me who are reaching Christ consciousness, we have to disclose this information and really, talk about the reasons why we are different, and the esoteric reasons and the occult reasons behind race and sex and money and all these different aspects of our life, within the matrix environment. So I think overall that's really what I wanted to, talk about, if you will, eugenics, talk about the relationship between the black male and the black female, the white male and the black female, talk about different, just pop culture things that give validity to the notion that there's a smear campaign against the black woman who represents the Christ, and a holistic view in the white male, which is King James of Scotland, that is the Antichrist, and the significance of, eugenics when it comes to, or melanin, I should say, when it comes to the white male and the black female. So that pretty much does it, guys, for the Whore of Babylon, if you will. And so I really wanted to kind of do this to actually give an esoteric explanation of my first video, of part 1, when I met my little friend who was gang stalking me at the pier. So thanks, guys, for listening, for watching, and I will see you in my next video.